Rev up your engines!
Simon says, Scotty, what do you think of the new 2020 Ford Ranger 2.3-liter Ecoboost? Rangers are good vehicles. I'm not particularly a fan of the small four-cylinder GDI turbocharged engines because they will not last as long as the non-turbocharged ones, period. But if you want that kind of horsepower, you buy something like that. You want to change the engine oil and filter and use full synthetic oil, and I mean change it every 5,000 miles with full synthetic, not 10 or 12 or 15. Change it a lot to keep it clean. It can last a long time. But if you're the type of guy that's going to get something like that, and since it's so big, you're going to drive the heck out of it, rag it, and drive super fast, it won't hold up over time. You'll burn the engine out. I've road tested them, and yeah, they work fine when they're new. When they get old, they wear out faster. And if you really beat them and drive hard, they wear out even faster. So, you're going to be a conservative driver, go ahead and buy one. If you drive a little faster, don't go for the GDI Turbo EcoBoost, because they won't hold up over time. They'll have the horsepower, they'll zip around, yes, but they won't last as long. Octopet says 2010 FJ Cruiser, 140,000 miles. Is it worth it? Thinking of buying one. They were great vehicles. Does have 140,000 miles, that's a lot of miles. But they pretty much hold their value because they don't make them anymore and they're popular. I noticed lately the price has been going up on them. So it could be a very good vehicle. You would want a mechanic like me, of course, to check it out before you buy it. Don't trust anybody. When you're buying a used vehicle, you got no idea what's going on with it. But they were very well-made vehicles for what they are. I believe they really stopped making them more or less because of their low gas mileage, and that was bringing Toyota's corporate fuel gas mileage down, so they got rid of it. Now they're talking about building a smaller version of them that doesn't have the big V6. It's got a four-cylinder engine in it, and they were even talking about putting diesels in some of them for better gas mileage. So, but those were well-built vehicles if it was taken care of. You just don't pay too much with that kind of mileage. Pookie says, I want to buy a small car for city driving. What do you think of an 09 Honda Fit manual transmission with 130,000 miles for $32.50? Yes, I mean, snap it up. If it runs good and the engine's in good shape, those standard transmissions, I got a customer with one of those that has 325,000 miles. Those things are solid, well built. If you like it, well, you look at it, you must like it, and it checks out good with a mechanic, buy it. And you better hurry up because there's probably a bunch of people. If they see it, they'll probably buy it before you buy it yourself. Paul Delasco. I got a 2008 Volvo S60 2.5 turbo. Is it a good family car? Having the first kid want a safe car with good gas mileage. You know, now that's kind of an oddball situation you're in. It was brand new. It was extremely reliable, but it's 12 years old now. The 2.5T is a 5-cylinder inline turbocharged engine. All turbocharged engines are less reliable as they age, period. If it's low mileage, it could still be a decent car for a while. But if it's got 140, 150,000 miles on it, no, it wouldn't be a smart thing to buy because you're going to spend a fortune maintaining them. And realize, Volvo got bought by a Chinese corporation that says in 2020 they're only going to make electric cars and hybrid electric cars. And they're going to give up with regular gasoline cars. So unless you got that at a really cheap price, I'd look elsewhere for a reliable car for a family because it could end up being a money pit if it's got high mileage on it. But I mean, if you find one with 50, 60,000 and get it cheap enough, they have horrible resale value, you could have a fun car for a while. Humber Guy says, what's your opinion on a 99 or older Suburban? Okay, yeah, back in the day, they made pretty good vehicles. I had customers of those things. They get 200-something thousand miles out of them, pretty much trouble-free. If you don't mind, a big, gigantic gas hog. And of course, if it's got a lot of miles on it, now you're going to have to do it over. The rear ends go out, the transmissions go out. Eventually, the engines burn out too. Now, the modern ones, no, they don't last all that long. But if you didn't mind buying an older one that has either been completely redone or buy an older one and put another engine, transmission, and rear end in it yourself or pay a mechanic to do it, that's not all that bad of an idea. But don't pay a whole bunch of money for one. You know, they're not worth that much money. They'll never be collector's items. So if you can get one cheap enough with no rust, you want to fix it up, go ahead. Go777 says, how are Toyota Venzas? Like, are they worth it? They don't make them anymore. But it wasn't because they were pieces of junk. It was because they were marketed in a wrong segment. A Toyota Venza is in between a Toyota Matrix, which they also don't make anymore, and a fancy Lexus SUV. They cost more than the Matrix and less than the Lexus. They didn't have all the luxury the Lexus had, but they had more luxury than the Matrix. But it turns out that they didn't sell all that many of them. It was kind of in the wrong stage of marketing. There's absolutely nothing wrong. If you can get a used one at a good price, hey, they can last a really long time. Same thing with the Toyota Matrix. They stopped making them, but they're great cars. And then to Toyota's things, like I say, a lot of this stuff is marketing. They now have the Toyota Corolla hatchback. Well, it's the Toyota Matrix. Originally, the Toyota Matrix was even called Toyota Corolla Matrix. Then they shortened it to Toyota Matrix. So it's basically just bringing back the Matrix, but they're calling it a Toyota Corolla because everyone loves Toyota Corollas. It's the largest selling car in the history of mankind. I don't know, 40 million, something of them that have sold so far. So why not use a name that everybody knows anyways? They should have just kept it Toyota Corolla Matrix, the name, but now they brought it back. So there's nothing wrong with the Venza. They're good cars. They just don't make them because it was kind of a marketing flaw in the middle. Go ahead and buy one. It's not like they have problems or anything. And question L. Can a timing belt be replaced with an equivalent timing chain? Well, you could do anything you want if you want to spend a small fortune. The reason they made rubber timing belts is, guess what? Because it's cheaper to make the cars that way. A belt costs less than a chain. It's a rubber belt versus the metal chain. And then the sprockets that drive the rubber belt, they don't have to be as strong because they're running on a rubber belt, so the sprockets can be made cheaper. Well, you go to a timing chain, you got to have stronger sprockets. You also have to have it encased in an oil bath, so that costs more money to make. If you really wanted to, you could figure a way of putting a timing chain, but then you'd have to have it oil lubricated. It would cost a small fortune. You're better off just buying an engine that has a timing chain in it than changing it over, because it would be a really expensive thing. They just did it because it was cheaper to make it that way. And if you look at all the modern cars, they almost all went back to timing chains because they have those variable valve timing setups where they rev higher, and since the cams are moving with the variable valve timing, the rubber belts couldn't take the strain, but a timing chain can. So now good, they're back to chains, which I liked in the first place because they're better made, they last longer, and there's less maintenance to do on them. Will Latour says, Scotty, I got an '07 Scion TC. Whenever I go over 70, I smell burning popcorn. What could it possibly mean? Burning popcorn. Well, maybe somebody spilled some popcorn on your exhaust manifold and it's starting to burn. You only smell it when you're going over 70, and you actually smell it in the car. You probably have valve cover gasket leaking. It will drip on the exhaust manifold, and then you'll smell it burning. Because if it's something coming out of your exhaust, you're not going to smell it at 70 miles an hour because the exhaust is in the back, and going 70 miles an hour, that wind is going to keep it behind you. Now, if you smell it when you come to a stop, yeah, the wind can blow your exhaust back into the front, and then you could smell it. But going 70, you're only going to smell air that's in front of you, and what's in front of you is the engine under the hood, and if oil's dripping from a leaky valve cover gasket, it'll smolder, then you'll smell it burning. Pray it's something simple like that, because anything else can get complex and expensive, but it's usually just a leaky valve cover gasket. You can change that yourself on those four-cylinder engines. It's no big deal. It's pretty easy to do. Graded Bacon 09 says, are ex-cop cars good for teenagers as a first car? One thing, they're safe because they're so freaking big. So if they do hit something, they're probably going to be safe inside. On the other hand, they are so big, and it's a new driver learning how to drive, they might end up running into a bunch of stuff. And they also have very fast engines, so the teenagers are going to be driving faster. Now, if it's a teenage girl, they seem to be more conservative driving. But if it's a teenage boy, I wouldn't get him a car with an engine that's that big, because they're probably going to wrap it around a tree. Now, they might be safe inside, but they'd be better off with not such a large engine so they can't get in trouble from going too fast. YouTube Observer says, Scotty, I still feel hot air coming out of the vents, even when my heater's turned off. Any ideas? It's an '07 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Here's how modern cars work. They're not like cars in the olden days. In the olden days, you turn the heater on or off, and there was a slide. You pulled the slide. Modern cars, the heater core itself always has hot air in it. There's no heater control valve. When you turn the heat on and off, is in a heater box, plastic box. And when you turn the heat on, the little actuator doors open that box up little bits at a time to let the hot air get into you. And the more heat you ask for, put it up to 90 degrees, they open the little doors more, so more air flows through them. When you turn the heat off, the doors are supposed to close entirely. Your doors aren't closing anymore. And it's a shame you got a Jeep, because the last time I fixed one of those and had to change blend door actuators, it was over $1,000 taking that entire dash apart. It's one of the poorest designed heating and air conditioning systems I've ever seen in my life, but that's just how Chrysler products have been for quite some time. Even in the 70s, they were horrendous pieces of junk, and now they're even worse than they used to be. Kill Dog says, Scotty, I got a 19 Honda Civic 1.5 turbo GDI. Should I switch to the new Zero W16 oil when it comes out? Yeah, it's supposed to come out in May of 2020. Definitely switch to it. That is going to be the bee's knees for oil. I've talked about that in the video. They had to come up with a new oil for the GDI turbocharged engine because of oil dilution problems, wear on the timing chain, wear on the cams. They had all kinds of problems, excessive oil consumption, and this new oil is going to work a lot better. They put a lot of research and development. I definitely would switch to that when it comes out with that engine. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.